Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I apologize. We're running a little bit behind. This is Thomas Varela with the New Jersey Black Empowerment Coalition. We're excited to have you join us for Know Your Power. What do we have to vote for? Let me go ahead and bring on Jared from Salvation Social Justice. We're on the road, as you can see. A week before an election, we was up in North Jersey doing a TV hit. We're excited to have everyone join us yesterday for our time is now. The marathon continues. Really appreciate our panelists, Larry Ham, Fatima Hayward, Adrian Baldock, for really having this intergenerational conversation regarding the importance of young people understanding their power, understanding their moment in order to create change in their community. This is part two, where we talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of the election. We talk a little bit about what we should expect in this upcoming election, and more importantly, how we can use the resources that are available to us to create change. Once again, we're just waiting to have Jared from Salvation Social Justice join us. Had a little bit of technical difficulty. Let me just make sure that it's working out. Thank you for your patience, everyone. Apologize for the noise. As you can see, I'm on Route 1 here in South Jersey. In Central Jersey. And of course, an alarm's going off beside me. I had to pull over. Um, Let me know if this horn, if you think this is a big issue in terms of the sound. Maybe I'll need to pull over somewhere else while we're still waiting for Jared from Salvation and Social Justice to join us. Oh, great. The alarm went off. For those that are in the that have joined us, tell us a little about where you at in New Jersey. If you're in North Jersey, Central Jersey, South Jersey, what county you're in. Give us a sense of where you're at. Currently, right now, I'm off of Route 1. As I said, I was in North Jersey, had to do a TV appearance in North Jersey and Montclair, and I'm making my way back to South Jersey. Thank you for your patience. Once again, we encourage you to Central Jersey, Somerset County. Welcome to the chat. Elizabeth, okay. Welcome to the chat. I believe that's Union County. Just have some technical difficulty, but it looks like we see that you're here. Jared, just trying to figure out how to get you in the group. Welcome to NAACP New Brunswick area branch. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your continued partnership. Definitely encourage everyone to follow New Brunswick Area Branch NAACP. We also want to thank our other partners, Salvation Social Justice, Aspiring Black Culture, Young Professionals for Justice, Urban League of Union County Young Professionals, and all the other partners that helped to amplify this event and yesterday's event as well. See, we'll try to go from the personal, it's not showing. There we go. There we go. Jared, can you hear
Hey
me?
Thomas, how you doing?
Good, good.
Yeah, I can hear
Good. How
you.
are you doing?
I'm good. How
Good,
about you?
good, good. Doing well, doing well. I apologize, as I mentioned earlier, and for those that are watching, we had a TV hit in North Jersey, so I was on the road. I had to pull over somewhere here in Route 1, a little bit south of New Brunswick. So definitely appreciate your patience as we were a little bit behind. But thank you for joining us for
No
this
problem.
conversation. I
Appreciate it.
think it's really important that we have this conversation. As we said yesterday, we had more of a why we vote. We were able to have three panelists talk a little bit about the importance of voting, particularly for young people. And I think now this is really important that we have more of a technical, the who, the what, and more importantly, like the then and how, and the work that Salvation and Social Justice does to amplify the importance of black individuals, the black church, and the black community more broadly to vote. So with that, if you could describe yourself and the work that you do at Salvation and Social Justice.
Yeah, sure. So I am the senior organizer with Salvation and Social Justice. We are a Black faith social justice organization that focuses on policy change across the state of New Jersey. And we do that with a theological lens, in particular, a Black faith theology lens. And the work that we're doing right now around civic engagement is crucially important for Salvation and Social Justice because of the power of the Black vote. We really understand it here at SNSJ, but a lot of folks across the state don't truly take stock of the actual power that the voting bloc of Black folks in New Jersey actually has. And so our work around civic engagement seeks to mobilize and energize and educate folks around civic engagement, and especially to get folks out to vote either during early voting, which we're blessed to have now in New Jersey, the week, 2 weeks before Election Day, and especially on Election Day itself. It's also just as critically important, in particular for this election, because, and we'll get into this a little bit more, all 120 seats in the state legislature are up, and we know how crucial state legislators in particular, their influence has on our daily lives as New Jersey citizens. So having folks going out to vote in this election, even though it's not a presidential, it's not a gubernatorial, it's still just as critical and it's still just as important. So we're trying to do our part by mobilizing Black faith communities across the state. We worked with well over 50 at this point, connecting with them, providing resources, information, training, and the like, all across the state of New Jersey to get folks ready for what we're calling Freedom Sunday, which is November 5th. So right after church service on Sunday, we're getting folks out to the polls. You can, jump on a bike, a scooter, hop in your car, a van, whatever you can use to get to a polling place right after church service, and to mobilize the Black vote, again, for all the reasons that I just explained.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it's always important that we think about and always keep in mind, while we know presidential and governor races may get a lot more marketing attention or more bandwidth in terms of campaign literature and et cetera, state races are very critical. And I think we also got to keep in mind, we can sometimes remember that local races, when we think about mayoral races, can sometimes get a lot of attention, especially in big cities like Newark and Camden, where there's a little bit more energy. But those state races definitely fall under the radar, and they're very critical. So could you talk a little bit about what are the positions that are going to be in this election more broadly? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know you may not be able to speak for every county or every municipality in the elections, but what's going to be on the ballot on November 7th more broadly?
Yeah.
And then the follow-up will be, can you describe a little bit about some of these positions? Like, what does your state assembly does? What does your
Hmm.
state senate and some of the other positions?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we could take this back to Civics 101, right? We've got two houses in the state legislature. We've got a Senate and an assembly. Um, Everybody has two assembly people and one senator in their legislative district, and there are 40 legislative districts across the state, right? So they're all broken up based on population. For myself, I live in Woodbury, so I'm in the 5th legislative district. My assembly people are Bill Moen and William Spearman, and our senator is Nilsa Cruz Perez. So what happens is every other election cycle, all of those seats are up at once. The assembly seats are up every 2 years. The senator seats are up for every 4 years. And there are certain elections where they overlap and all 120 seats are up for election. So that's what you're going to find at the top of your ballot this election season is Senate for the state legislature and assembly for the state legislature. So what's crucial about those positions is that these are the people that represent you here in Trenton, which is to say the dollars that actually, your taxpayer dollars as a New Jersey resident go through Trenton, and these folks, those folks that you're electing are the ones that are voting where to put those dollars. And so it's crucially important that you know who these people are, what they stand for, and if they align with the things that you want your taxpayer dollars to be spent on. Aside from that state level level of election and voting, there are also many county positions that are going to be up for election. Things like commissioners and executives. These are the folks who run the county government from day to day, and they also represent you as New Jersey residents on the county level. So they also make legislative decisions about how your tax dollars are spent in the county that you live in. And then finally, on the local level, obviously we have things like local city council and mayoral races. And these are the most critical because these are literally the ones that impact you most closely day to day. If you have issues with potholes in your, in your street, which everybody in New Jersey probably does, if you have issues with trash pickup, things about your local police, anything in between, things that you see day to day throughout your life in your neighborhood, those local elections are going to be super, super critical, as well as school board, right? So we all pay tax dollars into our school system. That's how New Jersey funds a majority of its public education system is through tax dollars. And so you would also want to know who are these people that are helping to make decisions about the ways that my kids are educated and how money is spent on the public school system and the education system in my local community. So at the root of all of these positions, from top down of your ballot, you really want to know who these people are, if it's aligned with yours, and how they plan on spending your tax dollars that you're giving to the local government.
Yeah, and I think that's something we got to keep in mind when we think about something like school boards. Those are elections that are gaining
Yeah.
more popularity and interest.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see language like parental rights get thrown out there when we think about what do parents want for their students. But I think it's always important to think about what voices are actually being amplified when we talk about parental rights, right? Because I think that's a word that's very
Right.
benign and everyone probably could resonate with. Yeah, parents want to have a say in what their education of their kids look like, but then the devil's always in the detail. So when we talk about parental rights, is it
Mm-hmm.
about banning books, or is it about having increased access to books? Is it about banning history and denying history being
Right.
taught, or is it about actually having accurate history being taught? And I think that's why it's really important that we
Right.
don't lose sight of some of these elections, particularly school board elections, because they have the ability, one, to shape what our education looks like for our kids, what type of history our kids are
Right.
receiving, and then more importantly, they can serve as the in some cases, they serve as the start of future campaigns, right? There are a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
who run for future offices that potentially were school board elected officials. So I think it's really important that we don't lose sight
Yeah.
of some of these local races because they can sometimes feel very mundane and very, boring sometimes, but they actually matter a lot. And so we can't lose sight of that. So I
Yeah,
think
for
that's
sure.
always important.
Yeah, and just to add to that, to the school board part, you know, a lot of these issues are also connected to things like LGBT support, right? So I myself am a part of the LGBT community, and I think that it's crucially important that these decisions that are being made on the school level and with public school systems take into account that, you know, some of the highest rates of suicide happen with LGBT youth, right? And in particular, some of the highest rates of hate crimes that happen in the United States are particularly targeted toward Black trans communities. So to know that we are educating our kids in the right frame of mind from a space of love and acceptance and embrace, rather than trying to erase out of our curriculum supports that need to be in place for groups within the LGBT community in particular, I think school board elections are even that much more crucial. So just something that, you know, for folks to think about, who are those folks that are running for school board that are going to make my children also feel safe, instituting policies that make our kids feel safe, loved, and embraced.
Definitely, definitely. And we are here with Jared Hunter from Salvation and Social Justice. We thank those of you that joined the call. Once again, we want to highlight our partners, Inspiring Black Culture, New Brunswick area branch of the NAACP, Young Professionals for Justice, Salvation and Social Justice, the Urban League of Young Professionals, Urban League of Union County Young Professionals. Shout out Jessica Taylor, president of the chapter there. And we're really excited to continue to elevate this conversation. So tell us a little bit more in a technical sense, like what are the different ways to vote? I know we're in the middle of early voting. So what are some of the upcoming deadlines that we need to be mindful of?
Yeah, so if you are voting by mail, you should have received your ballot sometime earlier this month. The deadline to have mailed that in was on Halloween, right? So on Tuesday, which is a week before the election. If you still have your vote by mail ballot, you can still cast it. You can take it to an early voting location or to a location on election day and hand it in, and that vote still gets counted. But vote by mail ballots right now are no longer being accepted unless they've been postmarked at 8 p.m. on October 31st. But you can still vote. So don't think that if you didn't hand in your vote by mail ballot by now that your vote doesn't count. It still does. So there you have vote by mail. Obviously, as you mentioned, Tom, we're in early voting, which started last Saturday, the 28th, and is going until November 5th, this upcoming Sunday. So Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., you can go to an early voting location, whichever is closest to you in your county, and go vote in person early. And there is information on the New Jersey Department of State's website that'll help you find where exactly your early voting locations are. Like I said, I'm in Woodbury, in Gloucester County, so I think the closest one to me is in Riverwinds in West Defford. So you can go to the Department of State's website, find your closest voting location for early, and you can go and vote in person there. Obviously, you can vote in person on Election Day, which is next Tuesday, November 7th. Polls will be open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Wherever you normally vote in person, it'll be broken up by each municipality. And also, yes, I believe someone put in the chat drop boxes for vote by mail ballots, right? So if you don't have time to go to your polling place, but you haven't mailed it in yet, there are drop boxes for vote by mail ballots all across your county in designated places that are secure. And they are, I believe, every 24 hours, there is someone from the local board of elections that comes to pick them up right after the end of that polling day. So again, those times are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. On Sunday. And so in particular, I want to highlight, obviously, Salvation and Social Justice's work on November 5th, which is the last day of early voting. We're calling it Freedom Sunday. We encourage you all to have your faith communities right after church service on November 5th. Jump in a car, jump in a van, hop on a scooter, whatever you got to do to get to a voting place, and get to your early voting place sometime between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. on November 5th. You can go in person, you can vote, your vote will be cast and counted, and it's a great way for faith communities in particular to encourage civic engagement and voting.
Definitely, definitely. So I'm not gonna ask you to go into to become a pundit and kind of talk about candidates and what what
Hmm.
elections are going to be close or what have you. But I will encourage people, if you go to NJ Beck's page, we have a posting called NJ Decides. New Jersey Spotlight actually has a detailed analysis of all the candidates and all the races. So definitely encourage you to take advantage of that link. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Um, Typically, these type of elections have such a low turnout. What are we missing when we don't participate in elections, particularly those that have low turnout, elections like state races, school boards, that a lot of people don't really recognize the importance of voting? Like, let's really go into details. Like, what are we missing when we think about Black power and Black civic participation and really leveraging our collective impact to like really make change, right? Because one of the things that we constantly talk
Yep.
about in these elections and just in terms of politics in this very broad, very harsh sense is that, and I'll own this language. I won't say this is salvation, social justice, but we believe that politicians or elected officials, they don't necessarily care about Black people, they care about Black voters. And we say that because it is voters
Right.
that determine if a candidate wins or loses a race. The fact that we're a
Hmm.
citizen doesn't automatically mean that we determine if an elected official or a candidate wins or loses a race. It's actually voters. And so that's why it's
Hmm.
really important that we focus on how do we make as many in our community go from citizen to actually super voters. So tell us a little bit about why this is really important.
Yeah, I mean, let's lay it out, right? We've got plenty of social justice issues that plague Black communities day in and day out that are directly connected to who we vote for. When we think about police accountability, for example, right? We think about the New Jersey State Troopers and the state legislators that provide funding to that agency. We know directly connected to, there's been numerous investigations and articles that have come up, even just within the last few months about traffic stops, use of force, and even fatalities that have occurred as a result of direct interaction with police. For Black people in particular, right? And we know that Black people are 3 times as likely to be arrested for any type of crime, especially drug-related nonviolent crimes, than their white counterparts. And we make up a substantial amount of the prison population, even though Black people only represent 15% of New Jersey's total population. So we really need to think about the ways that our elected officials are choosing to vote for essentially where the money goes. That's what we really need to be thinking about. Who is it that's going to be sending money toward the resources that Black people desperately need? We need money that is moving away from violent law enforcement interaction and more toward public health and critical mental support services for nonviolent crimes. We need to be thinking about Black maternal health, right? Black women in New Jersey are 7 times more likely to die in childbirth than a white woman in 2023, which is insane to me. We don't provide any type of adequate funding support for Black maternal health services that can help reduce those statistics and keep our Black women alive, healthy, and provide, giving birth to healthy babies, growing their families. These issues also deal with, drug penalties, right? We are targeted substantially more by police officers for small, nonviolent drug-related crimes than white people, even though white people use drugs at the same rate. Um, and again, this comes down to where are we actually putting dollars toward investing things like cannabis, for example, right? We know that the rollout of cannabis in New Jersey has hit quite a few snags, but to say the least, not to say the least of the fact that we truly haven't done right by our community in terms of reparations and righting wrongs of the war on drugs. New Jersey over the last 10 years has spent over $11 billion enforcing the drug war. Dollars that have been chosen to be spent by state legislators, and even more so on the county level, because you have things like county prosecutors' offices, who are the folks that are actually going after these communities on a criminal level. So we really have to think about who it is that we're voting for because we want to know how they're going to be spending dollars. We need dollars that are being reinvested back into our Black communities to create thriving, healthy, vibrant, sustainable, strong Black communities in New Jersey. State legislators, county legislators, and local or municipal legislators that don't do that or won't commit to that, frankly, don't deserve our vote.
Yeah, and I think something else that we think about is that our legislature has the opportunity to put pressure, so to speak, on the executive branch, right? We saw recently in 2020 or
Mm-hmm.
2021, the state legislature approved a bill to encourage the executive branch to conduct a study to look at how government contracts are spent with Black and brown and minority businesses, because we see
Mm-hmm.
that um, those numbers, the belief is that those numbers are not proportionate to the number of businesses that exist,
Mm-hmm.
and we know that that's important when we think about uplifting Black businesses.
Yeah.
We recently saw that the executive branch launched an advisory council to kind of build upon that. But one can make an argument that if the advisory council has been launched, then the data is out there.
Right.
So the executive branch actually
Right.
has the data to say, we know how much of our government contract goes to Black and brown
Right.
businesses. So we want to see that data. While you may say that the advisory council is going to explore the issue, there's opportunity to actually talk about the data, which
Right.
actually shows why you are launching this advisory council. So that's an
Right.
example of where the legislative branch did its part to
Right.
say we want to look at the study, and now we're looking at the executive branch to
Right.
actually report its data, which probably justifies them actually having an advisory council, right? It actually
Yeah.
looks like they're taking step two over step one, which
Mm-hmm.
means release the data and then show the justification for
Right.
why you are launching this advisory council. Don't just simply jump into step two.
Yeah, and this is also important to recognize that outside of the vote, we still have voice and power, right? You know, the Office of the Public Defender just filed a lawsuit against New Jersey State Police about the lack of implementing expungement and clean slate in New Jersey, right? And so activists, even outside of government realms, can still play a crucial role in uplifting their voice to say, in this example in particular, hey, I've got a record that goes back 12 years. I still am not able to find adequate employment, housing, can't get a loan to start a business because of this criminal record that's been hanging over my head, but it should have been automatically cleared years ago. And so putting outside pressure on those agencies as well as focusing on the vote is, I think, a winning strategy to truly make sure that folks are both getting the money and the dollars that they need in terms of investment back into Black communities, and then seeing the results of the legislation. Even if the legislature and the executive branch is willing, it takes a lot more of a stronger and sustained voice for us to continually push to say we need the dollars, the political will to do right by Black communities.
Yeah, and I think that's critical, because that's something that sometimes we have to remember, that voting is just one tool in the toolkit. And sometimes that voting is the easiest part, right? You can go and vote.
Right.
We know that there's three ways to vote. But the
Mm-hmm.
actual advocacy and putting pressure on the legislator, that requires more energy. And we know sometimes, unfortunately, for marginalized communities, or for Black and brown communities more specifically, we got other responsibilities. We're trying to live a life. We're trying to take care of our kids. We're trying to work. We may not always have the bandwidth to go advocate outside of our support of organizations like Salvation and Social Justice, the Urban League, NAACP, New Jersey Black Empowerment Coalition, etc. So
Mm-hmm.
that becomes that missing piece, is that accountability and the consistency, because what we know is that elected officials, they are sometimes reactive. Like, yes, we want our elected officials to be more proactive, but we
Mm-hmm.
know most elected officials, they're not going to be they're not going to take a risk unless they know that the community is behind them. So when elected officials
Right.
are trying to figure out what issues are actually important, they're trying to, like, test the waters. And if the same
Yep.
organizations and the same type of people advocate, then that's who they end up responding to. right? Because they end up responding
Right,
to the
right,
voters, and they end up responding to the people that participate, because ultimately, as we've said,
right,
elected officials and candidates want to win a race and they want to stay in office. So they're going to respond to the
right,
people that put the right type of pressure. And that's why it's really important for those that historically have not been in a process to use the
right,
levers that actually get their attention, right? When we say contact your legislator, it's not just because that's one way to contact them. It's actually because legislators and elected officials keep track of what's important. They keep track
right,
of who contacts
right,
them for what issue. And so if they
right.
feel that this issue doesn't really have resonance, then they're not going to vote on it. Even if the community is
Yep,
protesting, it's marching, they can sometimes dismiss some of those advocacy
yep.
tools because they can easily say, oh, those are not my constituents. Those are some other
Hmm.
constituents that are concerned about the issue. My constituents call me and they tell me this is what we're concerned about. My constituents email me and we have a track record as to what issues they care about. And so when I vote, I am voting based off what my constituents tell me. And so that's why it's really
Right.
important that citizens use all the tools that are available.
Yeah, and this is also why we at Salvation and Social Justice we find that it's crucially important, in particular, that we're leveraging the Black church. Right? We know that the Black church is one of the most stable institutions within our community, and so it's a space where we can almost guarantee a voting block. Right? If we know that there's 25, 30, 100 people coming to church every Sunday, leveraging that power. We know where all of those black folks are on a Sunday every week. And if at one particular Sunday during that election cycle, we can harness all of those numbers at the same time and mobilize them at the same time to go out and vote. That creates a huge difference in the way that we think about the power of the black voice, right? And our ability to mobilize black folks across the state becomes much louder, much stronger, much more unified toward an agenda that serves our communities and our purposes. And so that's why we're really, really encouraging folks in the black faith community to, right after service on November 5th, to make sure that as soon as service is over, you're heading straight to the early voting location closest to your church and mobilizing your congregation, because it makes a difference. Once legislators see that there are 20,000 folks in Atlantic County that we know are going to be mobilized for this election, politicians are going to look differently about the way that they engage those voters. And like you said at the beginning of this live, it's not just about black voters now, it's about black people, right? So we want to know, as a politician, I want to know what black people's issues are, not just black voters, because voters are just numbers to politicians, but people have agendas. And if we start to shift that narrative and the frame and perspective that politicians see black people as people with issues and agendas that need to be, paid attention to, voted on, in favor of, and paid for, then we start to harness the power that we really always have had. It's just a matter of the right folks at the right time, making it very clear that the iron's hot, so let's strike.
Definitely, definitely. And that's why it's really critical that we become super voters and show our collective power there. So with that, as we get
Yep.
closer to the end, we want to thank everyone that joined us. Once again, we want to really uplift our partners, the Young Professionals for Justice at New Brunswick area branch of the NAACP, Inspiring Black Culture, New Urban League of Union County Young Professionals. Uh, Talk to us a little bit about the resources that you guys have at the Salvation and Social Justice.
Yeah.
I know you guys have the Freedom Sunday, which is historically known as Souls to the Poll, where you're
Mhm.
encouraging people to vote this upcoming Sunday, November 5th. What are some of the other toolkits and resources that you guys have that helps everyday citizens better understand the policies that are important to our community?
Yeah, sure. So we've created our very first inaugural, we're calling it toolkit, pulpit toolkit, that we've created is around civic engagement. We call it the Black Ballot. So you can go to SNSJ's website. You can also find information on our Instagram or on our Twitter, and find that Black Ballot Toolkit. In particular for faith leaders, there's information about how to talk about civic engagement with your congregations, right? What are some sample sermons that I can use? Scriptures, prayers, altar calls, hymns, Bible study prompts, right? That's all in our Black Ballot Toolkit to talk about civic engagement, why it's important, and the intersection of the two with the Black church and civic engagement. We also have promotional flyers that we're putting out about Freedom Sunday. We're happy to share digital versions of that. We also have a one-pager that I'm really excited to be sharing with folks that has all of the critical information that you'll need about, Civics 101, right? Who am I voting for? What are these positions? What are the dates and times that my polling place is open? How do I check my voter registration status? How do I register to vote if I don't think I am? All of that information is on our one-pager that can also be shared digitally. And we're also doing something, myself, I am a resource to everyone here. We've been doing site visits across the state, between Newark, Jersey City, Patterson, Camden, Atlantic City. I'm going to be in Egg Harbor City on Sunday, Trenton, obviously. So we're able to come physically to your church if you'd like us to hand out additional resources, talk about the importance of this election and why it's important to mobilize your congregations to get out to vote. But like I said, if you check out our website, social media platforms, there's tons of resources that we're happy to share. And we really hope that folks find them useful and engage with them and share them with their communities as well.
Great. Jared, really appreciate you taking time to talk to our audience about the importance of voting and, more importantly, the work that Salvation and Social Justice does throughout the state. Reverend Boyer and his team have been such a, do the work. There's no other words to say. They do the work. They're intentional about making sure that it's rooted in faith and really rooted in community. So really want to thank the team there, Salvation and Social Justice. Let us know how to follow you, how to follow Salvation and Social Justice to make sure that folks can kind of tap in.
Yeah, so we're on Instagram and Twitter at SNSJ_NJ. My personal Instagram is here, JRHunter7. I would have been joining from the Salvation and Social Justice Instagram, but we had a few difficulties, but we figured it out. You can also follow us on our website at snsj.org. And yeah, you can reach out to any of us. My email is jared@snsj.org. You can reach out to me. I manage most of our programming here on the organizing front. Some, other great folks here with our comms team, with our policy director and other organizers. We are here as a resource to you all in the Black community, in the Black faith community, to really bring collective power and social justice to public policy and changing things for the better for our people. So appreciate you deeply.
And I definitely want to uplift Salvation and Social Justice, Jared, Raquel, Crystal. I know you guys received participating in the Black Futures Lab cohort. We definitely will hopefully want to bring you back on to talk a little bit about that experience. I know you guys are working with other cohorts across the country to learn skills related to Black power and advocacy, working under the leadership of Alicia Gazer and her team there at Black Futures Lab. So definitely kudos to you all there on the work that you guys are doing.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, big shout out to Black Policy Institute, Alicia, Catherine Granger, Julian. They're all really, really great people. We've had a great experience so far. We'd love to talk about it more with BEC soon.
Great. And so once again, this is Thomas Varela, Executive Director with the New Jersey Black Empowerment Coalition. As I mentioned, we had two events. We had yesterday really talking about inspiring young people, having an intergenerational, nonpartisan conversation about the importance of young people meeting this moment and picking up the baton and advocating for the needs that they have for the community. And today we talked a little bit about the importance of voting, why we vote in these elections, some of the races that are in some of the positions, and more importantly, why you all should be ready to vote on November 5th. If you want to take advantage of Freedom Sunday, or being able to drop off your ballot at a drop box, or actually vote November 7th. So once again, New Jersey provides a lot of great ways for people to vote. It's really important for us to have our voice be heard, and we look forward to providing continuing conversations like this through social media, through Zoom, We encourage you to really share this content. Do allow the Instagram algorithms to do its thing. Take this content and share it across Instagram, share it on Threads, share it on Twitter, whatever social media pages that you have. Even if you got to do a TikTok dance to kind of communicate this, we welcome that as well. So want to thank everyone for joining us, and we'll see you on the other side. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.